Thanks everyone for coming. We're really excited to be restarting our Startup Talk sessions and all of our events actually. For those of you who are new to the StartUP Sioux events, I'll just tell you a little bit about what we do. We're a bunch of volunteer entrepreneurs in the community, and for the last 8 years we've been putting on, actually we're close to 100 events that we put on. Things like tonight, Startup Drinks, Book Club, we've done pitch contests, we've hosted the Ontario Startup Canada Awards, many different things. And we're trying to build a thriving startup community in the Sioux. We're part of the Startup Canada network out of Ottawa. There's about 45 other communities across the country. And so the model is to start with a grassroots movement, thus the volunteers who are creating these events and opportunities for entrepreneurs to collide, get together, know each other, through various meetups and events. So thank you again for coming. Really excited to have Kevin here. I've known Kevin since he was 12 years old. First met him when he attended my computer camps at Algoma University, way back in 2001, I think. So I quickly learned that Kevin had an aptitude for computers, technology, web design. He caught on to everything we were teaching him. And then he showed up again the next year and just wanted to help out. And then by the third year, I started paying him because I felt really bad. He was helping out a lot every week at the camps. And so I think he was maybe 14, and I don't want to steal his thunder, but he already started talking to me about how do I start a business. So I've known Kevin for a long time. He's very entrepreneurial. I'm excited to see how far he's come. And before we get started, I just want to invite Jesse up to say a few words from Northern. Northern Credit Union is our sponsored partner on this event in our series of Startup Talks events. So really appreciate the team, Jesse, Alana, and Lisa, and the team at Northern Credit Union for sponsoring this and our coming events. And I'll welcome Jesse to say a few words on behalf of Northern.
Yeah, so thanks everyone for coming, and I want to thank Evan and StartUP Sioux for setting these up. We always like to be involved in projects like this, and it's great that Kevin is the speaker. We have a great relationship. We've worked on some things together, and I know we have some things in the future that we'd also like to do. And on behalf of Northern, that's really important for us to really invest in our communities and make sure the people that we're supporting are also supporting the community and just being forward thinking that way. So I won't bury the lead on too many of the things I imagine he's going to talk about today, but I do want to just highlight how much importance we put in the partnership that we have, and I'm happy to be able to present him here today and support these types of talks in any way that we can at Northern Credit Union. So that's all I got, and now on to the main show, I guess.
Thanks. No further ado, Kevin Russ.
All right, guys.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for coming. My name is Kevin Rusnell. It's amazing that I've been invited here to this talk today. I really appreciate it. It's a little bit weird for me to stand up here and talk about myself for any extended period of time, so I'm going to try and keep this light and fun. There might be some light profanities. I apologize about that, but it's just kind of sometimes the way I talk. I'll try and keep it to a minimum though. Mom, don't wash my mouth out with soap. Appreciate it. So a little bit of an introduction of who I am. So these are some of the businesses that I'm involved in or run. So Digital Intelligence Group Inc. We are very much like a digital first marketing organization and a data analytics company. So that's where I kind of spend most of my time, or would like to spend most of my time. Obviously, a lot of you probably know about Peace, which just recently launched, one of the newest restaurants in town. We got some great members from our team here today. And I should mention that my business partner, Jeff Elgie, is here as well. We own most of these businesses together. And then Repic, which is our real estate development company, kind of a focus on trying to redevelop the downtown and put some sort of focus on redevelopment and making our downtown a little bit more vibrant. And then I'm a shareholder in God's Country Clothing, so that's not necessarily something I do on an active day-to-day basis, but something that's obviously a great brand for our city and really puts our brand out there to a number of people. Now, I think it's really hard for me to talk about the different businesses I run without kind of talking about where I kind of came from. And so I have a little start here, which are kind of like my early beginnings. And Nevin mentioned that he knew me when I was about 12 years old, so obviously I had a pretty early start in life. But it actually started earlier than that. When I was 6 years old, I really wanted to start a lemonade stand. I thought, I need some money. I think I was wanting to buy a video game or something like that. And I really wanted to start a lemonade stand. So I went to my mother and I said, Mom, I'm going to start a lemonade stand. Thinking, we just go to the store, we buy lemonade, we come home, we sell it, great, I'm going to take all the money. My mom said, no. It doesn't work like that. Oops, sorry. You got to go, I'll give you some money, we can go to the store, but then out of everything you sell, you have to give that money back to me, so I'm just going to lend you the money. And I kind of realized expenses were a thing. So, went out on my front porch and I said, screw that, I'm just going to sell water, it's free, it comes out of the tap. So I was out there on my front porch, just yelling, water for sale, come get your water. Later in life, my mom told me I didn't even have ice for the water. I was just selling warm water to people walking down the street. They was up and down my street, just yelling at them. Poor neighbors. My kind of second lesson in life, so my first lesson was, there's expenses to run a business. My second lesson was, just start learning everything. And I don't know, anybody that kind of worked in tech, got interested in tech a long time ago will very much remember these books. These are like Learn Everything in 24 Hours. I had stacks of them, just stacks of them for the most random subjects. I still have them kicking around somewhere. But I put a really big focus on really educating myself really early in life for some of those things. Then I started my first company. I was about the age of 13. I wanted to start a web development company, and this was, you can't see the images anymore, but I pulled this from a software called Wayback Machine. This is my very first website. We were selling internet hosting. So I have all my internet hosting packages up there. Called it Force Network Designs and Productions. Great name, I don't know where I came up with that, but it was stellar. So I started that with a guy named Steve Sauve. He's actually still involved in the tech community in the Sault. He works at a company called ASAP Technologies and actually runs the build of most of their major applications, which are used by most of the credit unions in Canada at this point. And so kind of that thinking behind, okay, well, like if we start really early, we're going to start developing, a lot of really talented individuals. And it was great that at that time we had things like the computer camps and stuff like that. I really learned that mentorship is key. And so Nevin mentioned he met me really early in life. I think it's important to give him a shout out that he was a really great mentor for me. And then I also met Jeff, who's in the back of the room there, a little bit later in life. Both of them were, I would consider to be some of my biggest mentors in life and really bringing me up in terms of teaching me about business, teaching me about how a business runs and works. And I think that was very, very important. And then obviously working with good people, and I'll get to that in a little bit. So digital adventures in computing. We had computer camps, or Nevin had computer camps at the time, where we would actually go and you could sign your kid up for $200 a week, send him to a computer camp. We'd take care of him for the entire day and teach him how to build a website or build a video game, which, parents' dream. You just drop your kid off, you leave them with me, and it's my responsibility at that point. So it was great. I ended up helping out with Nevin, and then I eventually became a teacher, and then eventually told Nevin I wanted a part of it. And so that was my second business. It was really successful in terms of just being able to kind of draw kids in. I mean, it was great. We usually filled up our camps. It was fantastic, and I did that for a couple of years. You can see here, these are great pictures of me when I was a strapping young lad. Sitting at a trade booth, and I think this was my very first trade show. I went on to do many, many, many more after this. This is a couple years later, standing out in front of Algoma University. You'll notice, some of you might notice this guy right here, that's Jeff Greco. He owns Cavera Inc. in town. So him and I taught together one year for that camp. I put lots of pictures in this because I thought I'd probably try and keep things a little bit lighter and somewhat funny. And so that was great. It was a big formative time in my life, right? I had started my first business. I got involved with another entrepreneur who had taught me a lot of great, amazing things. But I needed to, start saving up for university. So that was making me a little bit of money, but I really needed to start saving up for university. And then Future Shop opened its store here in Sault Ste. Marie. Now, many of you guys know that as Best Buy, but when it was Future Shop and when that store opened, it was a totally different game. They were commission salespeople that worked there, and really the selling atmosphere was 100%. There's some pictures in here, but that's really where I started to learn how to really sell. And selling became the foundation for me for a lot of years later. I'm not kidding when I say we made like $150 an hour working there if you were a good salesperson, because you would just start selling warranties and upgrades and everything on everything. And it was a fantastic place to work, a great culture, and I've met lots of amazing people who I still know to this day. Then we get to my university days. And you can tell probably by the tone of my voice how that worked out. I really went to university, and I really wanted to make my parents proud. They really wanted me to go to school. I was a little bit interested in it. It was probably a good opportunity for me. But I went to the University of Windsor for a BCom of Business Administration with a minor in Applied IT. That sounds phenomenal. I didn't graduate. I spent my entire 3 years at university not going to one class, although I made it 3 years without going to a class because I could just write my exams, kind of studying on my own, and kind of making my way through. I got a pretty good degree in partying, though. So this is my mom and my dad dropping me off at university. You can notice the Coors Light girl. I'm sure they were really proud right behind my head. And then this was a family photo of me and my 5 other roommates that we went to Walmart and decided that we were going to take. So we all walk into Walmart all dressed up in our suits, and we sit down, and she's like, "Who are you guys, like brothers or cousins?" "No, we're just roommates, and we want a family photo for our wall." And then that kind of led into what was Incision Studios. And so, like I mentioned, some of you might know Jeff Greco in town. He owns Cabera. Him and I were business partners at a point. We owned a company called Incision Studios. We were roommates in university, and it was a great way for us to really enjoy the university life while making some money and not really have that many responsibilities / any sort of fixed schedule. We would just wake up whenever we wanted, do some work, and then go out and party some more. It was great. It was fantastic. So I spent a lot of time, playing some rugby. I didn't just party the whole time I was there. Working out a lot and kind of learning just on my own. I wasn't really interested in what school had to teach me. Post-university, I became a financial advisor. I actually I got my CSC, my life license. I became a full financial advisor, and I worked for Edward Jones and Dundee Wealth. Worked for Edward Jones for a couple of years, and I worked for Dundee Wealth. And then it just wasn't for me. Not many people, and not to say that nobody can do it, but I just couldn't do it. Not many people, want to trust somebody that's 22 years old with all of the money they have, which is a really, really tough uphill battle. And if you guys are financial advisors, I think there might be a couple in here. That's a slug, and congratulations to you for doing it. That's an amazing thing. So I decided, this isn't for me. I need a paycheck. I was kind of running out of money at the time. I didn't have much money through this whole period, even though I started all these businesses. None of them were wildly successful. Sorry, I got a light bulb moment in here. One of my other life lessons was to build an amazing relationship. And I kind of did that while I was doing the financial advising thing. So as much as I didn't, sign many clients, I met a ton of people because I was out there actively trying to generate business, and I made some amazing relationships with a lot of those people, which was fantastic. Then kind of came Lucidia. So like I said, it didn't work out for me. Jeff actually was the CEO at Lucidia at the time and the majority owner. I met him actually when I was about 15 years old. He took me for lunch, and his credit card bounced. There was some reason for it, actually, I'm sure he had met tons of money at the time, but he took me for lunch when I was 15 years old just to kind of understand who I was. And that was such a formative moment in my life to say, that person didn't have to spend any time with me. I'm a 15-year-old kid, who cares? But it kind of really set me up for how I view things now. It doesn't matter how old somebody is. It doesn't really matter who they are, where they came from. Take the time to get to know that person, because it can be a really powerful relationship for you. So I met Jeff. my future business partner, now the CEO of Village Media, was the CEO of Lucidity at the time, and I took a quality assurance job, which didn't really pay a ton of money at the time. And by the way, the picture of Jeff is typically how I see him, feet up at his desk, not working very hard. But a quality assurance job isn't really a big job, you know, like it's, at that time it was a low-end job. There are some pretty high ones now. And I kind of worked my way up to become a project coordinator there. I worked there for a couple of years. Jeff had departed to go on to do other things. And I was just kind of sitting there going, you know, what do I really do with my life? I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I still had that entrepreneurial spirit, but I was working for somebody at this point. So I got a job at CBN for a while, which is Canadian Banknote Company. I don't have a slide in here because it was a 3-month stint. The 3-month stint was me setting up electronic bingo machines across Ontario. They would fly me in, I would work in a bingo hall till 2:30 in the morning programming electronic bingo machines. Not a fun job. Sorry, if there's people in here that do that job, I'm sorry. But it wasn't for me. And then Jeff called me one day for a dig. So that, like I said, is my kind of day-to-day job. And I made a deal with Jeff, and I said, you know, Jeff, I really want to be an entrepreneur again, and I kind of want to own part of this if I'm going to come over. If I'm going to leave this job here and go over and just work for you, that's not great for me. And I said, Jeff, I want to own part of this. And he said, well, let me tell you something. If this works out, I don't know how it's going to be, you know, with you and I in the office. There wasn't a big company at the time. If it works out for a year, I'll offer you part ownership in the company. And that's what happened. You know, I worked my ass off for that first year. I stayed up till about midnight every night working on presentations I didn't really know how to do. And I learned a lot. But then after that year, Jeff stayed true to his word and offered me some part ownership in the company. And I bought in. Through that company, we built a really great, strong relationship with Google. Became a Google Premier Partner through the years. Went down to Mountain View, California, got to see the Googleplex. Went to New York, got to see the Google office in New York. Everybody always raves about Google and how it's this like amazing thing. And you know, they are a pretty amazing company. However, you can't go walking in. I thought I was just going to be able to walk in and see all these people working. You can't do that. Every door is locked. So they had like a curated event for us, and we stood out on the grass, and you know, they brought us in some cool food and drinks. However, what I will say about them is I did get to go eat at the cafeteria there, and it is like top-notch food. Like, I'm not even kidding, it's probably some of the best lunches I've had in my life, and it's amazing. We've been blessed with amazing clients, so Northern Credit Union, McDougall Energy, Sault College, Algoma Country, Paramount Commerce, Village Media. There's a whole other list of amazing clients that have stuck with us for a lot of years too. And so, you know, that's one thing, is like building those client relationships, and I come back to the relationship thing over and over again because it's so important. We wouldn't have those 7-year relationships, 8-year relationships with those clients if we didn't really focus on building those relationships with the individuals that work there. At the age of 24, I saw a business opportunity. Brad Jacobs was a friend of mine, and he was on the road to becoming an Olympic gold medalist. I approached him with a business opportunity. I said, hey, how about I represent you, and I'm going to go out and pitch this to a bunch of different clients. Northern Credit Union is one of them. And we'll try and collect some revenue and you know, get you a long-term sponsorship. That worked out really well. You know, we ended up signing a 4-year deal with Northern Credit Union. And then one day, on LinkedIn, I sent a message to the senior vice president of Lululemon, and I said, hey, I'm into curling. I represent these curlers. They're making a really good run for the Olympics. Would you be interested in sponsoring them? And we signed a 2-year deal with Lululemon, which is, you know, pretty phenomenal, the size and scale of that company, which I always like to say was the precursor for their massive Olympic bid this year, because they ended up taking over the entire HSBC Hudson's Bay sponsorship. So I think this important point here, and I put it into the presentation at this point just because I think it's important to talk about it now. Because it was before I took the biggest risk I've ever taken in my life, and it's to build a support network that really supports you. There's my little guy, and Emily, my partner, who's sitting right there, and my family over on the other side. Sorry. And then that was really necessary for me to have those people in my life in order for me to kind of take the giant leap and open a restaurant, which is a crazy thing to do. I don't know what I was thinking. So I figured probably a lot of people came here today to kind of hear me talk about peace. It's kind of one of the newer things in town and obviously a hot item. And so we acquired the building in August of last year, kind of in the middle of the pandemic. Little did we know we were kind of hurtling into what was the third, fourth, or fifth wave, I'm not sure, around Christmas time this year. But when we acquired the space, it didn't look like it does today. I don't know how many of you were in the old Solo, but it was a little bit rough. We thought we were buying something that was, a fully functioning restaurant. It looks really great in the pictures, though. It looks like you could set up shop tomorrow. I don't think it was. I don't really think it was a fully functioning restaurant. It had a lot of things that needed some work. So actually, in this picture, you can kind of see all the raised areas right there that do no longer exist. And if those of you haven't been into Peace yet, I'm going to show some pictures of the renovated space. And then at the back, we kind of have the pizza oven area, which is no longer there. And then you can see, obviously, all the glass block that adorn that place beautifully. And then here's kind of halfway through the renovations. The crazy part was Jeff, Matt, the executive chef, and myself went through and we renovated. We tore out a bunch of the stuff in there. We did it ourselves, with our hands, and felt like that was kind of a rite of passage. We had to do that, right? I'm definitely not a tradesperson. I'm not great with my hands, but I'm pretty good at destroying shit. I'm lagging here. Some more pictures. So there was a door that went over to the other side, the old Solo building. It was actually attached to another building. That ended up causing lots of issues with the city because, as you can imagine, this is now a totally different restaurant, and your ways of access have now changed. So you run into lots of hurdles and roadblocks. I'd never built anything before. I wasn't necessarily, a real estate development guy, but this was definitely a crash course in it. The crazy thing about Peace is that it's one of those businesses that you're kind of forced to kind of really start building from the ground up. Like, I had no knowledge of the restaurant industry, none at all. I more or less studied about the restaurant industry, said, okay, here's what I think I've known. I reached out to friends that were in the industry, sat down with them, went and bought them numerous amounts of beers to tell me everything that they knew about the restaurant industry. And then we kind of built this. It's a brand of Instagrammable moments. If you ever walk in that place, if you've ever been on Instagram and you've looked at that place, it's very much that brand. It has beautiful cocktails, the interior is beautiful, everything is meant to be, for a picture to be taken of it. And those are some of our cocktails up there on the screen. We're definitely a brand of great human connection and great people. So Michaela's up on the screen right there, she's in the back, and Matt as well. Matt's our executive chef, he does absolute wonders, and Michaela obviously runs the front of house flawlessly, and we've got amazing service. But we wouldn't be where we are today without amazing people, and I've really spent so much time kind of investing, we've spent so much time investing in great people, right down to the relationship with them. I sit down and talk to them like they're humans. Every single person on that team. A brand that makes people uncomfortable. So this is something that's like, if you've ever been in that place, it really is nothing like Sault Ste. Marie's ever seen before. There's so many things in there that are very uncomfortable for the average person. And we've got a lot more to come. Just wait till you see the art that's going in the place. And so it's really been that way. And then we use that human connection to kind of bring it back and say, okay, how can we make you comfortable now? And then my life lesson through all of that was, take that risk when you're young. I'm 33 years old now, and I thought to myself, this was supposed to be my retirement plan. I was gonna say, I'll work my ass off in the technology world, I'll make lots of money, and then I'll invest that money in a restaurant. And I said, why do it then? I'm not gonna have any energy. I'm gonna not be as excited about it. And I had the opportunity to fail here. I could fail and rebuild. And so now there's some pictures up on the screen. I'll kind of flip through them, but I'd like to open it up for any questions. I know that there's an event starting across the street, but I'm happy to take any questions. What's that? No questions? Yeah. It's good. That's a great question. So the original brand idea was that I wanted to open a pizza place. And I thought, that makes a perfect pizza slice. And then I started thinking about the brand, and we had lots of conversations, and it didn't end up, obviously Sault Ste. Marie has lots of pizza. I mean, hey, I'm not going to comment on the pizza in Sault Ste. Marie, but it has lots of pizza, right? And it's a hard market to be in to start a pizza place in Sault Ste. Marie. Not to mention, everybody would sewer you and say, oh my God, you're opening another pizza place. So we needed to be different. But if you look at kind of the brand, and if you look at kind of how that symbol is represented between people, it is a show of peace, right? Like it's a national symbol, international symbol. Everybody uses it. And it's very easy. And also it's a very Instagrammable moment. Anything else? Oh, sorry, yeah, go ahead.
How long did you think about this before you went out and made it happen?
Well, the restaurant itself, years and years I've been planning a restaurant. Actually going and making the purchase on the building, I don't know, like 3 days? 2.5 hours, I don't know. It was there, it was available. I'd been looking at that building for a long time, but just wasn't gonna pull the trigger on it. I talked to Jeff and said, hey, how about this? It's right down the street from our office. Be a great place for us to be able to deliver food over to the office if we want to do lunches or something like that. Why don't we just pull the trigger on it? And we did, which is crazy. Now, how much did I think about it once we bought the building? And I was like, holy shit, we got to actually build a brand around this. How do you build a restaurant? How does even financials of a restaurant look? Like, obviously I built a business plan within a day for it and stuff like that, but I didn't have any experience in it. And then I thought I had a chef, and he ended up backing out on the deal. And so I actually found Matt on Instagram. Like, I saw pictures of his food, and I said, that guy knows how to plate meals, probably knows how to cook. How about I interview him? So, sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
What made you want to go from there into a restaurant so different than technology?
So I think one of the things is that through my career, because I've worked in the marketing industry for so many years, most of that time is spent entertaining clients. So I'm given the privilege of being able to eat amazing food all the time because I'm always flying to Toronto. I'm always going out with the CEO of some bank or vice president of some bank. And you typically take them to the nice places, right? So I was really exposed to that kind of Toronto lifestyle of amazing food. And over the course of 10 years of doing that, or 9 years of doing that, I thought there's nothing like that here in town. Like we have to have something. So that's kind of where that came from. Jeff, at the back.
Looking back on your journey, is there anything you would have done differently?
Bit tough question. Yeah, there's tons of things I would have done differently. I think in general, being smarter with my money when I was younger would have put me in a better position when I was older, wanting to do all of these ambitious things. Whereas that might have gave me, a 2 or 3 year head start. Not that, I was terrible with my money, but I could have had a 2 or 3 year head start on that if I was a little bit better when I was, say, 17 years old and didn't spend it all having a great time. Michaela?
What's your vision for the future of pizza world?
You would ask that question. So I think there's a lot that can happen with peace. It is one of those things where, like the things I said, where it has to be Instagrammable moments and it has to be things that make people slightly uncomfortable, but then reel them in with something that's very comforting. I think more of that. Obviously we want to do things like build a patio and kind of some of those things. So that's obviously on the plate, but I think expansion into other different styles of restaurants would be amazing in the future. Whether that's here or in a different city, I'm not sure. But I think there's obviously some legs there. Obviously it's had it's been well received from the community. And now it's about making sure you don't really have many kinks, but making sure we're a well-oiled machine before we get to those next steps. Nevin?
You might have mentioned this, but when you were going to university, did you have a career in mind? Did you have a goal in mind?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the question was, if you didn't hear it back there, was did you have a goal in mind when you were going to university of what you wanted to do? And I did. I mean, I think part of it was obviously I was building that web development company at the time. That was one thing. And the other thing was I'm just going to go into banking. Like I came from a family that had a banker, and my mom's a banker, still working. And my dad was a car salesman. So, I mean, that kind of lent itself well to kind of that avenue. And I knew it paid well. When you're in university, you really don't think about what you aspire to do. You kind of think about the money at times, right? It's like, what are those big things that you want to make money doing? And I think that's what led me to become a financial advisor at the time, is like that was kind of an easy road into sort of the financial world. The benefit of that was that I learned so much about the financial world. Like, so I went to business school. Sure, I didn't go to class, but I still studied. I still had to study in order to be able to pass those tests. And then when I became a financial advisor, I just learned so much about how the markets work, how investing works, and that really, how holding companies and corporate structure works. That really had a big, massive impact on where I am today. Any other questions? Give it.
If somebody wants to find a partner, do you have any advice on how they can partner up with somebody to create a business or grow a business?
Yeah, I mean, there's many different routes to finding a partner, but I think it really needs to be somebody that you click well with. Like, if you're going to run a business with somebody, they don't need to be your best friend, definitely, but somebody that has a similar risk tolerance as you, because you don't want to be the guy that's saying, hey, I don't want to I want to take lots of risk, and the other person's holding you back. But then also somebody that maybe acts as a backstop for you too, right? So somebody that maybe has deeper pockets than you, that would be a great partner to be able to take on a big venture. And there is lots of people out there that want to do that type of thing, right? Like, look at me, I own 4 businesses, right? Like, I'm obviously looking for more things all the time. And there's definitely people in Sault Ste. Marie that are like that as well, outside of just myself. So, yes.
With all the different businesses that you own or operate, do they gel together? Are all the ones that you had before kicking in on the fight for peace? And then do you see any conflicts? Is there anything negative doing that?
Yes. So that's a great question. So the marketing company obviously helps pretty much every business that you possibly can build, because all of a sudden you don't have a marketing expense. Or if you have a marketing expense, you're paying it to yourself. So that's definitely helped. And it's also helped in the sense that we've had really good relationships with clients that pay us maybe on that side of the business as well, like contracting companies and stuff like that are then more willing to do business with you because they know, hey, I'm already paying this company anyways. The second part of your question, does it add kind of conflict and stuff like that? For me, the biggest one is just my time. One of the things, I've got Heidi sitting here as well. She pretty much runs the show at Dig, but Dig wouldn't survive without an individual like her. So we wouldn't be able to start, to take all of my time for a 3-month, 4-month period and go build a restaurant if I didn't have somebody I could trust at the office to really continue running that company. But it is a great question, and I think having those multiple businesses really does make it a little bit easier, but it doesn't mean that you can't hire those services. And some of those services are super cheap to hire anyways. So, anything else? They gave me a laser point. Yeah.
Do you have any bigger goals in see yourself, say, a Dig for the next 10 years? Or do you have other ideas you want to start now or in the future?
Yeah. I don't know. I love Dig, and I think Dig I think will be around for a long time, and I'll continue to work there. It's a great business. It's got a great business model, and it's something that I would consider myself good at. Like, I can show up in the room and I know a lot about that topic. But yes, I do have other business ideas. Definitely some other things that I want to pursue in the future. But that doesn't mean we can't hire great people to do those things, right? And be more on the owner side of it and less on the operator side of it. There's definitely a whole lot of that when you're small. You got to do everything. spend half a day doing bookkeeping because your bookkeeper doesn't know the transactions you made. And so like those types of things are really a big time drag. And I feel as you start to scale, it allows you to kind of optimize all of those things and build kind of a foundation for building businesses. Yep.
Talk about like flagging up the downtown. What would you say your vision of our downtown is in the next 5 years?
Way more patios. I think, you know, everybody will complain about it, but if you close Queen Street 1 or 2 nights a week would be fantastic. Make it a little bit more vibrant. We need way more residential, so we're gonna, you know, snowball into what is kind of like a housing crisis in this city. And if you look at how really good urban planning is done, it's very much vertical residential with retail on the bottom, which is fantastic. So if you look at the mall property, for example, that's a great opportunity for that kind of structure where you'd have a condo building, but it's not all a condo building. Those bottom floors can be commercial offices or retail, for example. Or a massive gym in that Sears building would be fantastic. You know, some more of that fitness, outdoor lifestyle, more breweries. That all creates a vibrant city. And if, you know, I work in tech. We've been slugging away at this for a long time, and if we really want to build this into a great tech hub, which in turn makes us a better city in general, I mean, if you look at all the other tech hubs, that's where we got to go. We have to get more of those things that those young people want. It's going to be a big, like, Sault Ste. Marie is going to face a talent crisis. We already face it. Like, if to try and hire for somebody is a 3-week just to get one resume that's qualified. You know, let alone hire somebody. If you were in a big city, you get 25 of them. What time is it? Do you guys have to go? Okay, good. Anybody else? I'll go back there because you already asked 6.
Do you find like being someone in the Sault trying to create something new, like one because the Sault is a very traditional place, do you find a lot of pushback from
Tons.
certain areas in the community
Yeah.
that say this won't work, and it shouldn't be doing this?
1,000%, all day. And I mean, I think that's something we're trying to change. I mean, everybody in this room is a great sign that we're trying to change that. All those people walking by going to see an illusionist show is something that's amazing to see, and it's the change that our city needs. All the people coming to Peace and trying something new is amazing for our city to see. I think that kind of old way of thinking is starting to die out because people are really realizing it's a beautiful place to live. And there's people moving here from Southern Ontario nonstop now. People can't afford houses anymore in Toronto. Like, it's impossible. So people are coming up here for the cheap housing. They're saying, we don't have all these things that I want. When something that they want comes up, they're going to support it. Now it's just about getting the word out to those people and trying to build those micro communities. You know, the Indian population is a great example in this community. We're really starting to grow a great Indian community in this city. We have like 3 or 4 different Indian places now, which is fantastic. So, I mean, I think that's a little bit more of that, like a little bit more immigration into the Sault, a lot more people coming here is fantastic.
So how can our community grow our young entrepreneurs so that we can build more businesses in the city?
That's a great question. So I think starting kids young is definitely, it's not part of the education system. Like, the education system right now is very much built for people, and that's no offense to educators, it's just how it's built right now, right? It's built that you go to the university and that's where you go. So I think in order to build more entrepreneurs in the community, first of all, more people coming in is always fantastic because then there's a bigger population to sell to. You know, I run a business that's very much in Dig that can go anywhere in the world. I can work from my computer. And now even with COVID, that was a fantastic opportunity for a bunch of people to move here and then work via video chat because it's socially acceptable. But really, if we want to start building it within our own current community, it's about starting people young and building classes for those kids to really get engaged in it, and then educating the parents on why it's important. That's the hard part. It's not the kids. The kids are malleable. They'll accept anything that you give them. It's telling the parents that they need to send their kids to entrepreneurial programs or getting it into the school program to teach kids that it's even possible. You can't even go to school and learn how to do your taxes right now, let alone corporate taxes. So that's something that, you know, it needs to be kind of at a younger age rather than when people get to be 25 and think, oh, I just need a job to survive now. Keep them coming.
Advice to somebody who's in audience thinking about a business idea, they're not sure if they should start, they're not sure if they have maybe capital to start, or
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so many ways to kind of bootstrap a business these days where you don't need a bunch of money. I mean, especially in this city, you can, even if you have a retail location, you can go out and lease that space for $1,200 or something like that, or $1,000. Like, you don't need to have deep pockets. And sure, I'm not saying that $1,000 isn't a lot of money to somebody, but there's ways of finding that money, or there's ways of gathering that money together. And there's also ways to just work your ass off and learn a bunch of different skills that are going to take away some of those services that you typically need to buy. Accounting, marketing, all of that. You can learn a lot of that on your own just doing internet research. And there's tons and tons and tons of available resources online that are free. Or you can pay for them and even get higher quality courses with some sort of certificate. Anyone else? Good. Cool. Thank you, guys.